Welcome back to the REI Closers podcast. Back with Alex, and I had a lot of questions last night. Actually, it was kind of cool. I was speaking at the Texas Tuesday event in DFW. If you guys haven't made out to that, it's in downtown Fort Worth at the Hyenas Comedy Club, I believe, on Commerce Street. Last minute, shout out Braden Bazell, but he was like, "Hey, come speak." They had it's a networking event, but we came in. I spoke last night about pre-foreclosures, and in the midst of that conversation, a lot of people were asking about SubTo because I was showing them some of the creative deals that we get when we're stopping pre-foreclosures or we're doing sub-2s and wraps. So this one, we're gonna really break down what is a wrap. Some of these sub-2 deals, some are seller finance, but a wraparound mortgage, so selling a house owner finance after you own it. So we're gonna break down a deal where we bought it seller finance initially and then wrapped the property, so we sold it on owner finance. Break down one where we bought it subject to and then wrapped it, and one where we bought it with a traditional loan with a partner and then went ahead and wrapped that property too. So 3 different ways of acquiring a property that we actually went and sold owner finance at a higher purchase price and a higher interest rate. So Alex can kind of break down like what are the 3 forms of first purchasing a property so that you could, go ahead and wrap the house.
So the difference between sub-2 and seller finance, a lot of people get this confused. Sub-2 is taking over the existing mortgage, so buying the house subject to the existing mortgage means you're now on the deed, you own the property, you just take over those existing payments. Whereas seller finance, typically it's with a house that's paid off, so you give the homeowner, the seller, a down payment, and then you make payments to them, so you're making them the bank, and then you're paying them out over time.
So between these 3 deals that we had, I'm gonna break down the first one because you kind of get an idea for those that have heard wraps or seller finance subject to. If you are new, it's kind of a foreign concept, and if you're just wholesaling, sometimes it's like, dang, what is this or why is this relevant? And I think the first thing I want to hit on is like, how many deals do you run into that are just low equity? And if you don't know how to do subject to, you're missing out on a handful of deals all over the place because, there's a lot of people that bought a house in the last 5-10 years that maybe don't work for a cash offer or even innovation, but you could take over their payments, put it on the market, sell it under finance, you could rent it out, whatever. So that's subject to. Seller finance too is just, no one has a mortgage on the house and you just make them the bank. So deal number 1, we'll start with the seller finance piece. And I think this is a little more rare in today's market where you see a lot of people mainly have a mortgage, right? You can target people with high equity or 100% equity, but a lot of times people won't want your low cash offer. So what happened with this deal in Carrollton, it was a little house downtown Carrollton. And I remember we initially got this lead in 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago when we first started.
Yeah, we had been texting them. It's actually kind of a cool story. We've been texting them, and I think you had spoken to them like right after we had initially texted them, and then we had them on a drip campaign through our CRM for like over a year. Yeah. And they kind of you had developed that relationship, but they felt like they knew us because we just kept texting them like once a month or once every few weeks.
It's funny because even though they weren't really replying, they would reply like once every 3 months.
Yeah.
They still felt like they knew me because it got to the point where it was like a year and a half
they
later.
answered and we're just like, hey, like Ben or Alex or whatever they said, like I'm ready to sell.
Yeah, it was as simple as that because I had a good conversation. The drip campaign kept hitting him. I maybe had one more in the middle of that year and a half, and he finally said, hey, like we're ready to sell it, which is funny because it's been vacant the whole time. They live at a property right by it, and they haven't been doing anything with it, but it's super like cool location near downtown Carrollton and almost like commercial if you wanted it to be. And so when I met with them, the sale was great because they were like, we used to rent this out, but we're making no money on it. We're old and we think, we want to sell it, but I also don't want to pay capital gains. It's a property that they had in as an investment. So they're going to lose like 35% if they sell it cash. So I said, well, what price do you want? And they just said the Zillow number, which is rare that is actually less than the value of the property probably. It's kind of hard to tell given the area, but generally speaking, I was like, okay, I can give you that if you're willing to do my terms. So I explained to them how the repairs are gonna be like 40 grand and I can pay you 150, but I'm gonna pay you 5 grand down and I'm gonna pay you X amount per month. And basically, I just backed them into a situation where I figured out what is the monthly payment they want, or that makes sense, and what is the purchase price they want. So like, rather than talking about the interest rate or any of these things, they weren't super concerned about the down payment. They just wanted to stop having to pay the taxes, the insurance, and not make any money every month. So on a social, or not, they're not even on Social Security, I don't think, but on a fixed income relatively, maybe it was Social Security because they're older, but they wanted $800 a month. I gave them the purchase price they wanted. I showed them, well, I can only give them $5,000 down because of all the repairs, and they were like, sweet, that's all we want. And ended up making a 15-year note. So instead of a 30-year mortgage, I made it 15 at that purchase price to make it $800 a month at a 0% interest rate. So long story short, if you use Carl's mortgage calculator, it starts with a K, Carl's mortgage calculator. You can type in the purchase price of the property, your down payment, interest rate, and then mess with the amortization, which is just how long are you spreading out that note, and it'll literally give you what your monthly payment will be. And then you can add annual taxes and insurance to see what your total is. But basically all I did, I'm not some science wizard or anything. I said, okay, they want $150,000 and I want a 0% interest rate. So I put the interest rate at 0. I told them I'm giving them $5,000 down. And then I look at this, originally it was at 30-year amortization, but the payment was like $400 a month. And I was like, well, shoot, I need to get this to 800. So I shortened the term to 15 years.
I think it was actually backwards. I think you pitched them originally the 30-year amortization. They're like, yeah, I can't, like.
Right, I always start with, Femi was kind of saying, I pitched them that. Like, I'm almost always going to show them, like, yeah, typically we're going to do a 30-year note like you would with a mortgage, but I explain to them I don't have to pay it out for 30 years. I can put a balloon payment. Just, I usually say I'm not going to go less than 7 years because a lot of these older folks are like, oh, I'm not going to be around then, or I don't want to get payments for 30 years. And it's like, that's fine. I just need to make sure there's enough time that the equity or the appreciation of the property goes up so I'm not like underwater, right? So to them, that makes sense. Okay, I want an at least 7-year balloon. So basically, I ended up lowering the term so that the payment was $800 a month. And then they said the same thing. We want to do a balloon payment. So I think, is that 7 years, right?
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah. So we closed on this at 2024.
Yeah,
the end of 2024?
Beginning. No. Yeah, end of 2024-ish.
Yeah. And so we're paying $800 a month to a property. So all principal's getting paid down, no interest, which is crazy when you look at that annually. I mean, 800 times 12, almost 10 grand a year just in principal pay down. And so usually on any other mortgage, the first 10 to 15 years is like all interest. It's crazy. So
you look at your mortgage statement, you're probably paying nothing to principal.
Exactly. That's why when you buy a property like a traditional, people buying right now at a 7% rate.
You're basically renting your house out while paying taxes and for your own repairs.
Exactly. The only thing you're really getting for the first several years is a tiny bit of principal pay down, almost nothing, and then hopefully appreciation if it's in a good market. So like, that's why, to your point, if you can buy a property creatively or rent it out, it makes way more sense than living in a property if you can not have to sink all the down payment into it. That's another story. But anyways.
I was going to say, going back to the negotiation piece, I think one thing real quick that people forget, like I was talking to someone that we know recently that was offering seller finance, and they told the seller, like, hey, I can do anywhere from like 2 to 4% principal. Which
interest, you mean?
Or 2 to 4% interest, yeah. Like, unlike what you said, where you can reverse engineer it, figure out what fits their needs and their wants, and then get yourself to a 0% interest. And they don't even, most people, if they can get the down payment they want, the monthly payment, you can get yourself a 0% interest without even mentioning the word interest to the seller.
It definitely depends. That's how we got, that's a third one I did at a 0% interest rate because of that situation, right? And it's generally just people that have owned the property for a while and they don't want to deal with it, but they don't want to take a huge haircut on the sales price. So it's like, they would obviously make way more money if there was an interest rate into it. But at the end of the day, the way I tell them is like, I'd rather pay you your purchase price or even a little more to get 0% if they ask that question, because it's like, I can pay it off faster, it's easier to you. And obviously some people aren't going to accept that, right? If they ask what the interest rate is, like, I mean, right now, and that's how I justify it, right? I say, hey, like, we're going to pay you the purchase price, but that's why the interest rate is low. It's just so we can pay it off quicker and it's easier. If you want at X amount of interest, I'm just going to have to lower the purchase price. And that's where you show them, like, there's plenty of levers you can pull. If you're adamant about getting a 4% interest rate, I mean, I can do that, but I'm going to buy it at, $250 instead of $300, right?
And in this one, I mean, it wasn't like, talked about last time, but it wasn't as cut and dry as that. Like, we were probably there because I was with you for like an hour.
Yeah.
We were sitting in like
we were building rapport that first time. Femi was with me, who's behind the camera right now, like, we might have been there over an hour, but it was really just building that initial connection, seeing the house, figuring out what their goals are. We didn't know if they were really open to seller finance initially, so getting them on board for that. And then it was the second meeting in their house where it was honestly easy. They're like, okay, we want to do the seller finance, like, what's the terms? And we just figured it out and signed the docs, and it was pretty simple. But when you have that connection, you're local, you can show up in person. It's like night and day difference, especially for people that have had a property for 30 years like that. Like they just want to know you're real and you trust them. But that's just the A to B close, right? So now that we have this great purchase, and there's a pros and cons on that. I mean, the house needed a ton of work.
We spent
more than what we expected. We brought in a partner of ours named Austin who brought the capital to fix it up. And so he partnered with us, brought the money, fixed up the property, and now we're like, okay, there's a ton of things that could be done. We could Airbnb it, we could do a long-term rental, we could find a commercial tenant because it's literally right next to a downtown area. It could be a flower shop, it could be a snow cone shop, a little boutique jewelry store. We had people inquiring for hair.
Law office.
Yeah, law office. We had people inquiring for like hair studio. Another one was a photographer. Like all this.
It's in a cul-de-sac too, so there's parking and whatnot.
Exactly. So it was a very unique property where I was like, okay, with super low payment, we're getting so much principal paid down in a great appreciating area. Let's just put it up for everything and see what happens. And sure enough, after like 2 months, we finally had a guy reach out through one of our leasing agents. She had it up for lease and for sale owner finance. And I always just do that. I'm like, let's just see what we can get owner finance. And really that wasn't the initial play because we had such a good interest rate on it. I'm like, let's just hold it and see what we do. And this guy comes in and he says, hey, I'd like to, run my daughter's flower business there. It's a flower shop and we kind of want to buy it. And I'm like, he's like, what are the terms? So we negotiated terms with him and got them to a $290,000 sales price.
I can't remember if it was 290 or 300, but he's at a 7.5% interest rate. So
I think it was 290.
Yeah, 290 because he put $30,000 down. So we get paid, and we're 50-50 with our partners. So in total, we get paid $1,800 a month. We're paying the underlying note $800 a month. So we're making $1,000 a month. And then the difference between his principal and our principal, so that's where people get a little bit confused, is when you do seller finance as opposed to SubTo, you don't have the appreciation because you sold the property, but you have that gap in the principal balances. So he bought it
for either deal. You're just saying.
Right, yeah. But I'm saying once you go to sell it, so he bought it for $290, put down $30K, so he's at $260, and then he's paying down a lot of interest at the start. So we're getting $1,000 a month, but his payoff is $260. Our payoff's getting paid down all principal, so it's getting wider. So I think right now our payoff is what, 140, something like that?
That's gonna be less than that.
135, I can do the math.
Like
his payoff's 258. So if he were to refinance or sell today, we would get paid the difference between the two principal balances, so between 258 and whatever, 140, 145, 135.
Which is a smoking deal, and I'm gonna slow it down a little bit for people that might have got too confused there. So like, the great thing about doing owner finance are wraps, and people that hear wraps, that just means a wraparound mortgage. So I'm selling a house owner finance that already has a mortgage on it. That's why they call it a wraparound. You're wrapping one mortgage around the first mortgage.
I always think of it like a planet. So like with rings. So there's a mortgage, and then there's a mortgage around it.
Right. So like our initial mortgage is that one with the A to B seller, right? We have $145,000 note at a 0% interest rate. That's our first mortgage technically with the seller. And now we went and sold the house at $290, so way bigger purchase price after fixing it up. And we sold it at a 7.5% interest rate. So almost 8% more than what we had it at. So not only now our underlying principal is getting paid down so fast, right? Because there's no interest. So ours is gonna hit like, basically to do the extra math here is like by year 7, when our balloon comes up, we're gonna owe about $70,000 to $80,000 on the whole note. And that guy who bought the property, if he keeps paying us for the next 7 years, he might owe probably $230,000, $240,000.
Yeah,
something like that.
He's at $258, I think. Right now.
So let's say it's $230,000, and
we owe a 30-year note.
Yeah, we owe $70,000. That principal gap between ours is the equity that goes to us the moment that he sells or refinances, or if we just sell the note to a note investor, right? So basically, you get paid 3 times on a wrap. You get the down payment. Right, so we got the 30 grand down. We gave that back to our partner because he was the one that brought the money, and so he gets his money back. So his investment's even lower. Now we make the $1,000 a month, right, on the interest spread, and then we get paid the 3rd time down the line whenever this guy decides to sell or refinance, or if you have a great note and a performing note and you want to cash it out now, you could. But it's kind of awesome because it's like, let's just take the $1,000 a month, especially when you're For us, we're no money into it. That's the power of being on the acquisition side and doing the deal. Yeah, we have a little bit of cost in between, but our partner gets a down payment back, so he's less than what he originally brought in.
The best part is if this person, in a perfect world, refinances or sells and right at the end of year 6, so you get $12,000 a year plus the difference in the principal balances.
Right.
If it works out that way.
Right. And there's pros and cons to all this, right? The biggest thing that a lot of people ask is like, well, why don't you just do this all the time? We've actually done this with a lot of properties because repair and maintenance piles up, right? That's the thing people don't realize. I want to be a landlord, I want to own properties. That is great. You're going to make the most amount of money long term by owning properties, but things break. The cash flow, the $400 a month in cash flow is not cash flow whenever your AC goes out.
It's $6,000.
Yeah, exactly. So that's always going to happen. We haven't really truly cash flowed on almost any property we purchase, but we get tax benefits for purchasing it because we're real estate professionals. You got to talk to your CPA, but we can write off on our taxes. Yeah, we do cost segregation studies, and it's the long-term play. Okay, if I own this for 10 years and the property doubles in value, then I'm going to make a lot of money, right? I'm willing to net zero, save on taxes, and make a ton of money down the line by owning 15, 20, 30, 100 properties. So that's what you're now giving up in a sense, is the tax benefits and the long-term wealth whenever you end up wrapping a property. Because if I sell a house owner finance, I no longer own it, right? I'm the lender. So I kind of capped the appreciation, right, at the purchase. So you're still making the passive income. You got your down payment, and you're gonna make whatever the difference is between those two loans, but you're not gonna get the appreciation. And since you're no longer the owner, you don't get the tax benefits of owning it. So it's like a wrap is really a true way, once it's done, to be passive if the guy keeps paying. And that's why you gotta vet your buyer, because we can tell you the horror stories of wraps that gone wrong, and it's when you don't vet your buyer well, they don't make the payments.
You foreclose on them.
You foreclose, or you gotta take the house back, which again, if you collect a big down payment, it's not the worst thing in the world. That's why you're somewhat protected there. But we had to get a house back that wasn't in great shape, and no one's paying the mortgage anymore, and you got to deal with the time and the money to get the house back. So there are some headaches that can go along with this, and that's why you want to get a good vetted buyer that can afford those payments and has the cash to bring the money down and afford the monthly payments.
Yeah, so I would say that's good on that deal. That's the first one. So it's a house we bought, seller finance, sold, seller finance. Second one's also in Carrollton. This is one that we purchased SubTo, and then exit strategy was the seller finance,
which ended up being the second plan B.
Yeah, the second exit strategy, because it was an Airbnb.
Which is funny. I feel like we've done this multiple times where the initial plan wasn't actually to wrap it, because sometimes it can take a while to find that good buyer vetted. Like there's a lot of people that will inquire to do own a property, seller finance, but then it's like, do they have the down payment? Do they have enough income to afford it? And then do they not flake on you? Because some people just don't understand it, or they back out, or they don't like the deal. But yeah, this one, I guess break down this deal.
It was a foreclosure lead.
Before I break this down,
Yeah.
what makes you choose to wrap something or to do it seller finance?
Femi asked what makes us choose to do a wrap or to do seller finance. I would say it's a case-by-case basis. Like if you're in an area that's like a nice, like pretty nice, well-appreciating area, it would probably be smart to keep it as a rental, because that house is gonna, like if you were in, say, McKinney, Texas, brick house, good school districts, like you'd probably want to hold that as a rental. Whereas if it's an older house in an area that's not as highly appreciating, not a bad idea to wrap it. You can also, it's also tough to wrap things over like $300,000 because there's just less buyers. So the price point matters too. Like you're probably not going to wrap, $600,000-$700,000 house. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's just you have less buyers.
Because when people watch these videos, I'm like, oh, if you can get a 0% interest, like just wrap everything. I think there was a lady that was in SubTo, and that's her like thing. She just like basically just works off of the difference to where she can get the. Yeah,
that's the lady that we'll break down the last deal that what she does with those deals. So some people focus on that, right? But like, let's say you're in a highly appreciating area, like Alex said, and you wrap a property, like we're technically giving up even more on the deal, right? Like let's say we own this for the next 7 years, and we can go develop a bigger property or sell the house for $450,000. like, well, we gave up that extra $100,000 in appreciation, right? So like wrapping it is like, it's like the lazy way of like moving on in a way. Like you don't have to be the landlord. You don't, you take the passive income check, but you're giving up the actual appreciation of the property, right? I think this one was well worth it because we sold it at a higher price than I think the property was worth, which sometimes you can do owner finance.
It's a straight up smoking deal.
Yeah, which like hopefully the guy just keeps paying, knock on wood. But you wouldn't really want to wrap it if you have a smoking deal on something that's going to cash flow and the appreciation is going to be high in a good area, people are moving there. I mean, if you can afford to hold on to that for 5-10 years, you're going to get much more out of it in 10 years. You just might have to pay for the repairs, the maintenance, the things that come along with owning a rental property.
There's also not a bunch of 0% seller finance deals just out there. Like you gotta put in some marketing and some time and some effort. Like the deal we just went over is a really good deal. Like you gotta really, it's not a super.
The next one is
deal.
A little more common stuff that we run into. Like most of our rental properties are purchase subject to. We're dealing with a lot of pre-foreclosures, as you guys have seen.
This is PPC and pre-foreclosure.
Right. All this content is like, people that are behind on payments. A lot of times that's our biggest flips, our biggest wholesale deals, but it's also our best subject to deals, so rentals or wraps, because this lady, for example, on this next deal, like you were telling her, she was pre-foreclosure, she was behind on her payments, she's about 6, I guess when we contracted, probably like 12 days away from foreclosure.
Yeah, it was really close.
She had a 2.75% interest rate. She bought the house in like 2018, 2019?
It would have been 2019 or 2020.
Yeah. So she only owed like $255 on the house. It technically is worth like $350 right now. She was trying to sell it for like $330. She didn't have enough time. They needed a couple things fixing, nothing major. It was pretty nice. It had a pool in the back. Great, North Dallas, up and coming area, just not like, it was a little older of a house.
1960s,
Yeah, 1960s. So we come in and we're like, hey, we can close on this, and before the foreclosure, we'll catch up your back payments. We'll give you $5,000 and we'll take over that payment at the 2.75% rate. And so for us, it's like, sweet, this house is a $350,000 house, but we're getting it at 2.5% interest rate, 2.75. We're paying $1,900 a month. The long-term rental rates are like $2,500. The Airbnb numbers were like $4,000 a month. So we end up putting this thing furnished. We put it on Airbnb and had no expectation of the city of Carrollton just being a pain in the butt. And we ran it as Airbnb for a year and it was okay. Had a lot of more repairs that we would have liked. But because the city was such a pain in our butt, we ended up putting it up for sale, owner finance, just to see what would happen. And day one,
self-listed,
yeah, we self-listed at $350, like owner to owner. And first day, I got a full price offer at $350 with a conventional loan. Like he was trying to come in and buy it conventionally, and I called the realtor. I saw he was putting $100,000 down at a 6.5% interest rate. So I was like, why don't we just give you a 6% interest rate? We're trying to owner finance this, and he can bring the same down payment and not have to, have a 6.5% interest rate. Long story short, we made it work, and there was a whole deal of getting this closed and trying to get them to understand, seller finance and getting the realtor on board. But we ended up getting,
tried to sneak some stuff in there that she shouldn't have.
Right. But read your contracts. It's another story, but basically similar situation. We had a partner that brought the money. We got him the bulk of that back, or all of it back on the down payment. We took a little bit extra, had a roof replacement. So since this guy had such a big down payment, our investor and partner got all their money back. We got some. Now that gap though is almost nothing because our principal balance is $250. The guy bought it for $350 but put $100,000 down. So we took the bulk of that money up front, and now that monthly payment spread is only like $400 a month, which is still good because he's paying a 6.5% rate.
Yep.
And we have a
6% rate.
Yeah, 6% rate. Yeah, and we have a 2.75% rate. So there's a pro and con for this. It was great because we got a ton of money back up front. It's just that back end payment when he sells or refinance, it's going to be way smaller.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think that's the subject to version, right? We take over the payments and then we sell it owner finance on another mortgage.
In Texas, that's probably the most common one, at least with people we know, is taking it SubTo, selling it on a wrap.
Yeah. And then that's where people get creative. You start seeing the opportunity with this. You're like, well, what if I just get a deal under contract at a huge discount? And like, what if I just want to buy it with a traditional mortgage?
Yeah.
And so this is what we're doing in the process of. We'll let you know how it finishes up, but we're in the process of doing that with a partner. where we have a deal that we were trying to wholesale, actually do a novation on. For those that know the novation or seen our breakdowns, like we had this under contract at 170, and I was going to put it on the market. It was actually under contract like 185, but we put it on the market at 230, hoping to do a novation and get the wholesale fee. And we had buyers come in interested owner finance, and their offers were way less because the house needed way more work than we thought. So we lowered the initial contract to 165, but we're selling it owner finance at 192. So basically we brought in a partner that's going to get a traditional loan to buy the first contract or the first closing. And so he's getting literally like a 7% or 6.5% interest rate, just investor loan at 20% down. And we already have the buyer lined up for the B2C close at 192 at a 10% interest rate. And the reason this works is, I mean, it's a pretty low valued house. The house needs some work. The guy can't get credit or whatever, but he has good income. He owns his own restaurant over there. So it's always those types of buyers that want to buy owner finance. He's willing to pay 10% interest on a $192,000 house. It's still like, what, less than $2,000 a month, something like that, around there.
Yeah.
But we collect the $700 a month, roughly $650, and we give that down payment back to our investor. We split the, joint venture on basically the monthly payments and that equity gap on the end. So you can do it with a traditional purchase. You just got to usually have a higher interest rate on the back end.
Yeah. And another cool story is kind of going off topic is the power of social media. Austin, how'd you meet Austin? He just saw you on Instagram?
He's reached out to us on DMs, and I feel like I get that a lot, but this guy lived in the area. He was a young dude doing well in sales, and just wanted to invest and deal in that right place, right time. Got in on the first one in Carrollton, and then was looking for more and got in on this one now. So, but yeah, just met him on Instagram.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, that's, I would say, 3 different ways, kind of 3 main ways to do seller finance. Is seller finance, wrap, SubTo, wrap, or get really creative and get the traditional loan, close on it, wrap it.
We're getting through that process. There's some people that specialize in that. They call it like a triple 10. Shout out Isabel. She's helping us get through that, where basically they find buyers that are willing to buy owner finance, and then she knows that they're going to get a 10% interest rate. She marks it up 10% on the purchase price, and they put 10% down, so triple 10. But we have some other people in this room. I know it's getting a little loud, but this was everything owner finance, wraparound mortgages. If you guys do have specific questions, make sure to join our school group. We do break down everything pre-foreclosures, how we get the leads, how we negotiate them, how we find a lot of these deals that we're closing. A lot of people don't realize how you can even communicate and find these. You gotta have the speed to lead, you gotta know how to talk to them, you know how to close the deal, and usually partner with people that have done it before. But if you have any specific questions for this regarding seller finance, make sure to hit us up on Instagram, follow me at benjensen.rei, and join our free school group. We'll see you guys on the next one.